Sit down. I have a story for you. There is a village, no name worth remembering, where the houses sit so close together that neighbors can hear each other breathe at night. People there know everything about one another, what they eat, what they argue about, when they cry. In places like that, reputation is the only currency that matters. Tonight's story is about a man who understood that perfectly. His name was Aldous Vane, and he was, by every account, the most generous man anyone had ever known. That was the problem. In the village of Calder's End, Aldous Vane was beloved. He was a thin man, older than he looked, or perhaps younger, it was hard to say. He had a house at the end of the lane, larger than most, with a garden that produced more than any garden had a right to. Vegetables of extraordinary size, flowers that bloomed in the wrong season, fruit that appeared on branches that should have been bare. And all of it, every last basket and bundle and bouquet, he gave away. When the miller's wife fell ill, Aldous appeared at her door with a broth that smelled of herbs no one could identify, and she recovered in 3 days when the doctor had given her 3 weeks. When the schoolteacher lost his savings to a bad winter, Aldous pressed coins into his hand without a word and walked away before thanks could be offered. When a child went missing in the wood at the edge of the village, it was Aldous who found her, sitting at the base of an old oak, perfectly calm, as if she had simply been waiting for him. The villagers adored him. They brought him things in return: bread, jam, small handmade gifts, and he accepted them with a gracious smile and a slight bow. He lived alone. He always had. No one found this strange. Some people, the villagers agreed, were simply meant to belong to everyone rather than to one person. His nearest neighbor was a woman named Sarah. She was practical, quiet, a little suspicious by nature, the kind of person who notices things others don't. She noticed, for instance, that Aldous's garden produced things that were not in season. She noticed that he never seemed to sleep. She noticed that the jar on his windowsill, dark glass sealed with wax, was never in the same place twice. She said nothing. Reputation in Calder's End was currency, and Aldous Vane's reputation was beyond question. For a while. The first thing Sarah noticed was the dog. Old Murray, the baker, had a dog, a scruffy, affectionate thing that followed him everywhere. One morning it disappeared. By afternoon, Murray was inconsolable. By evening, Aldous had appeared at his door with a small, carved wooden figure of a dog, painted to match, almost exactly, the one that was gone. To help with the grief, Aldous said. Murray wept and called him a saint. Sarah, from her window, watched Aldous walk home. She watched his hands. They were dark at the fingertips. She told herself it was soil from the garden. The second thing she noticed was the miller's wife. The woman had recovered from her illness. Everyone remembered Aldous's miraculous broth. But lately she moved differently, slowly, as if she were learning to inhabit her own body again. Her husband didn't seem to notice. He was too grateful. Sarah asked her once gently how she was feeling. The woman smiled, the right muscles moving in the right order, everything correct, and said she had never felt better. But her eyes didn't move when she smiled. They stayed very still, like painted eyes, like the eyes on a carved wooden dog. The third thing Sarah noticed was the jar. She had seen it on his windowsill for years. Dark glass, sealed with wax, the contents never quite visible. One evening, walking past his house at dusk, she saw it clearly for the first time. The jar was full of small things, coiled, dark, pressed together. She walked faster. That night she could not sleep. She lay in her bed and listened to the silence from the house at the end of the lane. No sounds of movement, no sounds of breathing, no sounds of anything alive. She began to ask quiet questions, careful ones. She spoke to the schoolteacher's wife, who mentioned, almost in passing, that her husband had been different since Aldous' gift of coins, more agreeable, less himself. She spoke to the father of the girl who had been found in the wood, who said the child no longer dreamed, which he supposed was a blessing since she'd had such terrible nightmares before. No nightmares, no dreams, no part of herself that went somewhere else at night. Sarah sat with that thought for a long time. She went to Aldous' house on a Tuesday morning when the lane was quiet. She knocked. He answered immediately, as if he had been standing just behind the door. "Sarah," he said warmly, "what a lovely surprise." She looked past him into the house. The rooms were neat, orderly. On the table in the kitchen sat the jar. "What do you give them?" she asked. "When you help people, what do you actually give them?" Aldous tilted his head. The warmth didn't leave his face exactly. It just became a different kind of warmth. The kind that doesn't mean what warmth usually means. "I give them what they need," he said. "You would be surprised how much people have that they don't use. Dreams they will never remember. Feelings they have already forgotten. Small pieces of themselves going to waste." He smiled. "I just find them a better home." Sarah left. She walked home quickly without looking back. She began to pack a bag that evening. She did not finish packing. Aldous knocked at dusk. He had brought her something. A small gift, a jar of preserves from the garden, dark red, sealed with wax. "You have seemed troubled," he said. "I thought this might help." Sarah looked at the jar, then at his hands, then at his face. Then she made the mistake that everyone in Calder's End had made before her. She let him in. The next morning, the villagers of Calder's End noticed that Sarah seemed much better. She had seemed anxious lately, tense, distracted, jumping at small sounds. But now she moved through the lane with a calm, easy grace. She smiled at everyone she passed. She stopped to help old Murray carry his flour sacks and laughed at a joke he made, and the laugh was warm and light and perfectly correct. Whatever was troubling her is past, the villagers said. Aldous must have helped her. He always knows what to do. And Aldous, in his house at the end of the lane, sat at his kitchen table with the jar in front of him. It was a little fuller than it had been yesterday. He sealed it carefully with fresh wax, set it on the windowsill in its usual spot, looked out at the lane where Sarah, or the thing that moved in Sarah's body now, was carrying flour sacks and laughing in the morning light. He folded his hands on the table. He waited. He was, after all, a very patient man. He had been collecting for a very long time, and the village of Calder's End had so many more people left to help. Aldous Vane was, by every account, the most generous man anyone had ever known. He gave and gave and gave. He asked for nothing in return. Nothing you'd notice, anyway. The book doesn't close, it just turns the page. And the village of Calder's End had so many more people left to help.